Hi there, and thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be looking at lesson 1.3, solving equations with variables on both sides. Today's notes, we're going to have 9 things to write down and try, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we want to write down are the steps to how to solve whenever you have variables on both sides. The first thing you need to do is make sure you simplify both sides of the equation if needed. That would mean the distributive property or combining like terms. Next, you would need to use the inverse operations to collect variables on one side and constants on the other. So if you see a subtraction, you want to use addition to move it to the other side, and vice versa. And then the last step would just be isolate the variable, and that's just your solving step. Let's go ahead and take the time now to pause here so you can write down steps 1, 2, and 3. Once you're done, click play to see how it's done. All right, so the first thing we're going to see is this. So our first step said to simplify both sides of the equation if necessary, and there's nothing else to simplify. So I'm going to go into step 2, and I'm going to try to get all the variables on one side and all the constants on one side. It's going to be easiest for me to move this negative 4x over here because I already have a negative 9x on the right side, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to do that by adding 4x because I'm using the opposite or inverse operation. These 4x's cancel out, so all I have left on the left side is 10. And then negative 9x plus 4x is negative 5x. Now I can go to step 3, which is just isolating the variable. So I'm going to go ahead and solve by dividing by both sides by negative 5. So x is equal to negative 2. Okay. Again here, this one you would need to simplify first. Notice that you're going to use the distributive property for both sides. I'll start with the left side here. 3 times 3x is 9x. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. 1/4 of 32x would be 8x, and 1/4 of 56 would be positive 14. Okay, then I'm going to get my variables on one side and my constants on one side. In order to make things easier for me to keep everything positive, I'm going to move this negative 12 over first. So all I have left is 9x. Equals 8x, and then whatever 14 plus 12 is, that's going to give me 26. And then I'm going to move this positive 8x by subtracting 8x from both sides. So I have 26 is equal to 1x, so x is equal to 26. Okay? Here are 2 that you're going to get to try. So again, number 2, you don't have to simplify anything on the either side. You're just going to move variables to one side and solve for x. But number 3, you will need to distribute and then start moving variables and constants to opposite sides. Go ahead and pause the video now so you can try them out, and once you're done, click play to check your work. All right, so the first thing you did in step 2 is you probably moved this 3x to the left side. That is going to create a negative, but that's okay. We'll get negative 5x is equal to 10, and then we divide both sides by negative 5. X is equal to negative 2. Okay, with this one, number 3, negative 3/4 times 8n, that's going to give us negative 6n. And then negative 3/4 times 12, that was going to give us negative 9. Okay, on the right side over here, we're going to do 3 times n and 3 times negative 3. So that'll just be 3n minus 9. Now we can start moving our variables and constants to one side. I'm going to go and start here and moving my 3n over to the 6n. So I have negative 9n minus 9 equals negative 9. And then you're going to notice whenever you move your constant over, negative 9n is equal to 0. So n is equal to 0 for number 3. Okay, when you can do 0 divided by a number, that is totally fine. You just can't ever do a number divided by 0. All right? The next thing we're going to talk about is when equations have more than one solution or no solution at all. Okay, and so this is really important to write in our notes. The first thing we want to know is identity equations, and identity equations have infinitely more solutions. So after you solve, maybe for an example, you're left with negative 3 is equal to negative 3. That is always going to be true. So if you're ever given that, other examples could be like 5 is equal to 5, 6 is equal to 6, 7 is equal to 7. That means there are infinitely more solutions. So identity equations, meaning the solution is equal to one another, that means there are infinitely more solutions. However, there are such things as no solutions, and that would mean after you're done solving, you're left with something like this, like 5 is equal to 0 or 1 is equal to 2, okay? These are not true. So because they're not true, you're going to say no solution as your answer, all right? This is super important to write down, so you're going to pause the video. You're going to pause the video here. Go ahead and write down what does it mean for identity equations and no solution equations, and then once you're done, click play, and I'm going to show you what those look like. All right, so here are some examples. I'm going to go ahead and solve letter A, so I have 15x after I distribute plus 6 is equal to 15x. And you can already see that when I start moving this 15x over to the other side, I'm going to have 6 is equal to 0. And that is not true, so there are no solutions for this one. Okay, over here I have negative 2 being distributed, so that's negative 8y minus 2 is equal to negative 8y minus 2. You can already see that both the left side and the right side are equal to one another, but if you went ahead and moved all of your variables to one side and your constants to one side, it's basically those are gonna cancel out. So you have negative 8y is equal to negative 8y. And if you want to keep going, you can still going, but you can see that they're equal to one another. So this is infinitely more. Okay, so anytime an equation is equal to one another, remember this is an identity. And that's going to be infinitely more solutions. When it's not equal, there are no solutions. When it's just like this, x is equal to 0, that's just mean one solution, okay, which is what we were doing before. Here are a few more that you're going to try. These are the last 4 in your notes. Go ahead and take time now to pause, and you're just going to determine, is there one solution, infinitely many solutions, or no solutions? Okay, so for number 6, we're going to distribute. We're going to have 4 minus 4p is equal to negative 4p plus 4. Okay, I'm going to subtract, let's go ahead and add 4p to both sides. So once I do that, those cancel out. So I'm left with 4 is equal to 4. So this one is going to be infinitely many. I'm just write sol for solutions. Okay, over here I'm going to have 6m for number 7 minus m, and then is equal to distributing the 5 6 times 6 is just going to give me 5m, and then 5 6 times negative 10, that's going to give me 8 and 2 6, or we can just say 8 and 1/3. Okay. Then I'm going to see, I can subtract over here 6m minus m, that's going to give me 5m, is equal to 5m minus 8 and 1/3. And then notice when I subtract 5m to get it over here with the other variable, I'm left with 0 is equal to negative 8 and 1/3. And that is not true, that is no solution. Oops, can't spell today, sorry. Number 8. When we have these numbers, I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So I'll have 10k plus 10 is equal to negative 10k. And then I'm going to subtract 10k to both sides. And that's going to give me 10 is equal to negative 20k. Okay. When you divide, I'm going to scoot this down real quick just so we can kind of see a little bit better. When you start to divide this, you're going to notice that you actually end up with one solution. K is equal to negative 1/2. Okay, so this is one solution. And the last one, number 9, we'll have 6a minus 6 is equal to 6a minus 6. Because those match, that is going to be infinitely more solutions, or infinitely many. Okay, so that's going to conclude our notes for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Just a reminder, whenever you're solving your linear equations, you make sure you want to use those steps that we talked about in the beginning. These are just a little bit more steps. If you want to pause here, you can. Other than that, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next.